Hello everyone, welcome to another Versus Video Deck Tech. I am Brian Braun-Duin, joined again by
Chris Van Meter.
And we are going to be battling some Standard this week, a little change of pace from the Modern that we've been doing lately. And I'm going to be battling with Naya tokens, a strategy I employed at Grand Prix Chicago last weekend to a 12-3 finish.
Respectable.
Was respectable, yeah. I did lose numerous times to Mono Blue, but we will just ignore that for the time being and focus on the deck itself. So basically this deck is built around the Perf, or Perforos, God of the Forge, and everything in the deck is built to take advantage of Perforos. So we have some acceleration to kind of get the ball rolling, and then we have Voice of Resurgence, which combos very well with it. It's just a very good card in Standard right now, for one. Exceptionally good against Mono Black. Comes down before Lifebane Zombie, makes their Devour Fleshes laughably bad, can block Pack Rat for a time to buy you time for cards like Mizzy Mortars or Elspeth. Just a very, very good card in that matchup. And the other thing it does is the tokens are very good with Scion of Vitu-Ghazi. So Scion of Vitu-Ghazi is another one of the central parts of this deck along with Perforos. For one, Scion of Vitu-Ghazi makes 2 guys when he comes into play, always. Even if they kill your voice token in response, you can still get 2 birds.
Yep.
So you're going to trigger Perforos 3 times with just a single Scion, so that's 6 damage. But you can also populate Voice of Resurgence tokens or Advent of the Worm tokens to make just a ton of power to the board. I've had some games where I had a 3/3 voice token and a couple of mana guys. I untapped, played Scion of Vitu-Ghazi, and all of a sudden I now have like an extra 14 power on the board or whatever.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a decent amount. My original voice token's a 6/6. I have another 6/6 voice token, a Scion of Vitu-Ghazi, and most importantly, a single 1/1 bird token.
That flies.
It does fly, and that is oftentimes relevant with Perforos' pump ability too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of neat synergies with all these cards here, but Scion of Vitu-Ghazi is actually just a pretty powerful card on his own as well. Being able to produce multiple creatures is good against like a lot of decks such as Mono Black, where a Hero's Downfall on your Stormbreath Dragon sucks, Hero's Downfall on Scion, you just kind of shrug it off. You're like, that's fine, I'll just keep hitting you with birds.
Yep.
So there's a lot of awesome stuff there. And then there's also Corsair Krufix, just a very solid generic creature in these kinds of decks.
Yeah, I imagine in most decks that are going to have basic land forest in them are also going to have at least 8 of these 12 cards.
Exactly.
So, as we saw in Block Constructed, 7 of the 8 decks in the top 8 had 4 Sylvan Caryatid and 4 Corsair Krufix. So get used to it because they're not going away.
They're not going away. And one of the, like basically just that, like Corsair is just an insane value card in a deck like this. And one of the things about this deck is like you actually play super defensively. So you're kind of like the defensive deck in a lot of matchups, and then you just rely on Perforos to deal like huge chunks of damage to your opponent. So you go from like chumping with voice tokens or like holding down the fort with Corsair, holding down the fort with Scion of Vitu-Ghazi, to just like immediately turning the corner at one point and just being like, all right, I'll attack you for 10, play an Elspeth +1, you take 6 from Perforos. You know, now you're at 4 and you're just dead next turn. So that is one of the sweet things about this deck.
It's actually really interesting. When Theros and the subsequent 2 sets have came out, we see all these gods that are basically rewarding you for playing off the synergy that the devotion mechanic adds.
Yep.
So cards like Thassa. The only other god besides this that sees any play just because of the god and his ability itself is Erebos.
Right, and that's mostly the life loss.
Mostly the life loss. But here we have Perforos, and we're just built on taking advantage of the additional abilities that he has. We actually have no way to turn him into a creature in the deck, so he's always just going to be a 4-mana enchantment. But because we're doing that, we're not being destroyed by cards like Thoughtseize that's able to take a linchpin card off of our devotion strategy that we're focusing on. Like against the mono green devotion, you just Thoughtseize them and take their Garruk, and they just have like a bunch of burning Tramissaries and stupid creatures. But against this deck, like you Thoughtseize them and you see Perforos, Scion of Vitu-Ghazi, Elspeth, Xenagos, you're just like, well, what do I take? All these cards are amazing by themselves, and they just happen to work together well too.
Yeah, and like Perforos does rely on some synergy, but the synergy is every single one of these cards.
Yeah. Like
So it's not like, you know, a Perforos by himself does nothing, but it's not like you're never going to draw a guy. Like, you're never going to draw a Planeswalker. He's good with all these cards. Like, even Domri +1, you can reveal Perforos from that. So
yeah, it's pretty cute.
it is extremely cute. In fact, some of my opponents commented on how cute it was when I did that. And then, yeah.
I can't wait until we Birthing Pod into a god. That's what I'm waiting for.
That is the nut right there. Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying, we have Planeswalkers too. We have Domri, Xenagos, Elspeth. Couldn't get away from Elspeth for too long. Had to go back to it at some point.
Not surprised.
Just so good. And Xenagos, kind of wanted a third one, but couldn't figure out what to cut for it, so ended up just playing 2. But Xenagos' +1 is actually extraordinarily powerful in this deck, with cards like Elspeth and Sign of Vitu-Ghazi to provide a lot of creatures in play. Voice of Resurgence is another one. You can actually generate a ton of mana, which is like awesome for overloading mortars, and awesome for activating Perforos' activated ability. In fact, numerous times in the Grand Prix, I drew Perforos for turn with like 5 or 6 lands in play, played it, +1 Xenagos, and activated the ability. Like, and one turn I activated it 6 times the turn I played it. My opponent died that turn, to say the least. So
not surprised.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things with this deck. It's actually really good against anything that doesn't have Thassa and Master of Waves. So let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboard and see what options we have there. Alright, so in our sideboard we have a lot of cards that come in against Mono Blue Devotion. The matchup I said was the bad matchup. In fact, on the draw I was often siding in all 15 and still losing. So some work needs to be done in that matchup still, but I'm going to talk about the reasoning behind some of these cards. So Anger of the Gods may seem out of place when it kills our Voices, Sylvan Caryatids, and Elvish Mystics, and all the creatures our Planeswalkers make, and the birds from Sign of Vitu-Ghazi. However, it is actually very good in the deck, surprisingly enough, because 1, you can play around your own Angers. 2, against a lot of decks like Mono Blue, I side out Voices anyway, so no problem there. And thirdly, like Courser and the Scion itself survive Anger, and a lot of times what you can do is go like Xenagos +1, Anger of the Gods, and then you're left with them having no board and you with the Xenagos still in play. And you get to rebuild faster than they do, even though you do sweep away a lot of your own guys. Also, a lot of decks will not expect Anger of the Gods out of a deck like this because, like I said, we're playing a lot of creatures that die to it ourselves. So they're going to go like, you know, a Crone Crusader into like target it, play another guy, into like target it, play another guy, and we're just going to play Anger of the Gods. They're going to be surprised.
It's like the old White Weenie decks playing Wrath of God for the mirror.
Exactly.
They never see it coming.
They never see it coming. 2 Nyx Fleece Rams for burn, aggro decks like red and green-white. I was also siding it in on the draw against Mono Blue, but I'm still unsure if that's correct. Mostly because between Anger of the Gods and Mizium Mortars, I feel like I can sweep their board enough times. I just need to not die. I need to not die to like their Cloudfin Raptor in the meantime or whatever. So that's where Nyx Fleece Ram comes in.
Plus, if you have Perforos in play, you can actually attack with your Nyx Fleece Ram.
True, and also there's another way. I actually killed my burn opponent with multiple Nyx Fleece Rams on the offense because of Archangel of Thune. Got to play an Archangel, play a land with a Courser in play, pump my team. He did chain to the rocks my Archangel, but Nyx Fleece Ram attacked for 1 a lot. So
the old 1/6.
The old 1/6, they can't beat it. And then there's 2 Deicides. That is 4 Thassa, God of the Sea, 100%, but also kills Attention Spheres, Coursers. I brought it in against a junk opponent who had Coursers and Banishing Lights and things like that. Just a very versatile card in this metagame. Mistcutter is for control decks and Mono Blue. Just really a cut above some of the other options in that slot. And Archangel also for Mono Blue. But Archangel's also good in some other matchups too. The red decks, the burn decks, some of the other mid-range decks. I played against a Naya deck where I actually lost because he had main deck Archangels, and I won game 2 because I brought in mine and drew them. And then he won game 3 because he drew 2 again. So Archangel very good in those matchups. Yeah, definitely no rats were involved, but lots of angels. So yeah, I really think that this sideboard is pretty good. It could definitely be better. I think these Nyx Fleece Rams could maybe be some Banishing Lights to get rid of Master of Waves and Thassa. But overall, I think this deck's pretty awesome. If I had a standard tournament, I would just play it again with some updates because I think it's very good against the metagame, especially the top 8 was of the last Grand Prix was 5 Black Devotion decks and 2 Blue-White Control decks, and I feel like this deck is well positioned against both.
Fair.
So I guess we'll find out how it does against blue-eye control in this video, though. Hopefully,
Not very well.